Okay, unsurprisingly, I got ahead of myself there in saying I was going to go mix some epoxy. We need to actually prepare the surface. You don't want to have the epoxy mixed and starting to harden or cure while you're off prepping the surface, obviously. So, my apologies. Anyway, pretend this is the end view of the bite zone of a pipe, of a stem, and that the red here is the chewed away area that you need to fill. We're going to handle this little spiny tool in such a way as to deepen it slightly but keep the edges sharp. And by sharp, I mean as close to 90 degrees to the exterior surface of the rest as possible. You don't want to think that, well, I'll blend this, I'll smooth it out. And that's no good, because what'll happen here, what you want to do is when you fill this with epoxy, like so, you want it to be have a where the edges of it are. You got to make sure they don't feather ever so gradually into the surface, because into the exterior line of the bite zone, like this. Let's say you cut this thing out here using that sharp little tool. Well, where you blended that out here at the edges gets almost infinitely thin. And as tough and as clingy as this substance is, that's inviting trouble. If you were to mash down on that spot right there, you could roll or peel up the corner of that in such a way that it would start a dominoes falling, and you'd end up with another hole there. So you're not going to be like painting and feathering and smoothing the whole end of the stem. Nope, we're going to attack the spots that need it and keep the edges as close to 90 degrees as we can within reason. Of course, that's not literally going to happen, but you get the idea. And the other thing that I forgot to mention is don't go cleaning up the stem in every way besides the epoxy application first. You'll notice this hasn't been touched. This pipe is as it was sent to me, and it's grungy, and we're going to have to do a lot of sanding and polishing to get this thing back in shape. It's not only less work, but for reasons I won't get into because they're too detailed, you're better off in terms of, I won't even try to, again, I won't go there. You're better off if you apply the stuff now and then shape it as part of the rehab process for the entire stem, as opposed to getting it all clean and shiny and nice and then adding the epoxy. That would add work and not be as durable. And durability here is the magic word. So, before we actually get to doing the epoxy mix, I thought you might like to see this guy in action. And normally I'd brace this on a little block I have on the edge of the table, but I don't want to have to rearrange the camera and stuff, all of it. I'll just try it freehand here and see where it goes. Notice how slow it's moving. I'm not sure how close I can get and still have it be meaningful here, stay in focus, but I'm hoping. All right. Now that's no more than about 100 RPM. I'd be surprised if it's more than that. And I'm not using much pressure. It doesn't take much pressure. This thing is sharp as a razor, and it would cut right through there into the airway faster than you knew what had happened, I'm afraid, if you weren't paying attention. So I'm making that dent, that missing chunk of material, kind of uniform. And I'm going to do the rest of it off camera because that is really awkward for me to do it. But you saw what I'm going to do. Everywhere that's necessary, it looks like, you know, maybe the entire back of the button across the top. We're missing a fair amount of material there. And then, of course, this big bite out of the bottom. So I'm going to dress this and prep it. And then we'll mix the epoxy and apply it. Now, you're probably thinking, well, I could take a different tool than this one, something with a sharp tip, and go after it and make little hatchings all myself. Like take a needle sharp tip of some kind and make cross hatching. And that's not as good a solution as this in mechanical terms, for the same reason that anybody might remember going back to the 60s and 70s and into the 80s, four-wheel drive vehicles often had tractor tires that were literally the same kind of, where they had the chevron-shaped bars on them, and they were extremely aggressive looking. And today, you don't see those anymore. You can't even buy them, I don't think. That what's known as siping, the increased amount of area. Let me back up. What is impressive to a human is not impressive to Mother Nature. And those V-shaped lug tires, like you used to find on old-fashioned tractors, did not work the way your brain thought they should. They found out through just trial and error that what really works better is a finer tread with lots and lots of little cuts in it. And the gripping surface area of those is extraordinary. And it doesn't look impressive, but it works better. So that was a poor explanation, but you get the idea. I would not think that, I would not endorse or recommend that you try this procedure I'm going to do with the epoxy using any other tool but this one, because I'm kind of going out on a limb by showing this to you at all, because if somebody tried it and they have a chunk fall off in their mouth or their customer's mouth, and they'll say, well, George told me to do that, and boy, is he wrong. I haven't had a failure, but I've never done it in any other method or using other tools than what I'm showing you. So if you vary or deviate from that, you're on your own. You might come up with a better way. I don't know. But I can't vouch for it, so to speak. So there, that's my disclaimer. And I will now, for real, get on with the epoxy job.